Okay, I'm going to talk about Basculegion. More competitive Pokemon talk. Basculegion. It's the evolution of Basculin. Basculin was a Pokemon introduced in Gen 5. It doesn't matter. It was irrelevant. But in Generation 9, they released Basculegion with the release of Pokemon Legends Arceus. And then, which technically Pokemon Legends Arceus is like Generation 8.5 or something, but it wasn't playable and competitive until Generation 9 because it was locked to that game until Scarlet and Violet released and allowed people to transfer Pokemon in for Pokemon Legends Arceus. Anyway, Basculegion. It's in Ubers, and I have a couple of things to say about it. First of all, before I get into defending it, which I am going to do, who the fuck thought this was acceptable? Okay, who the fuck, what kind of fucking LSD, cocaine-fueled bullshit was going down in the meeting room where they said, oh, let's take a Pokemon that has adaptability and swift swim on top of pretty decent attack and speed already, and give it last respect. Remember Dracovish? Remember in Generation 8 when Dracovish was considered extremely strong, was banned from OU, went to Ubers, and then was extremely good in Ubers for having a 180, for having an attack that was situationally 180 base power, pretty easy to avoid, nothing else worth running, and a 100 base attack with low speed. Remember that one generation ago? Yeah, let's give a Pokemon a fucking 300... Yeah, why don't we take a Pokemon, give it a fucking 300 base power attack, no drawbacks, other than, having to be trying to sweep with it, which you probably were going to do anyway. No drawbacks. Also, the Pokemon has adaptability, so it's dealing more damage with it, unless it runs this other ability, which is Swift Swim in Ubers with Kyogre. Kyogre, the Pokemon that was the single best Pokemon in the tier for 5 generations. Your options here are either run adaptability to boost the already absurd 300 base power even further, and then run it with a Choice Scarf so you outspeed everything, or run it with Swift Swim and run a Choice Band, get an additional boost to all your water moves, and probably Oko shit with base 120 power Wave Crash boosted by Choice Band and Rain, and you're outspeeding everything because Swift Swim is active. You're even outspeeding Choice Scarfers. With Choice Band, to make up for the quote unquote loss in power compared to using adaptability, and to boost your water moves so that if someone sends in a Ghost Resist, you could just still click button. Granted, that set is harder to use because Rain has to stay up, and the tier has Groudon, it has regular Rayquaza. I think Mega isn't in the game. And it has Koraidon? Yeah, Koraidon. That's the one they call Sun. So this Pokemon is absolutely stupid, okay? I'm not denying that it's dumb as shit. It's who the fuck thought this was acceptable? Just on a conceptual level, what the fuck were they thinking when they gave a 300 base power attack? That attack was strong enough to make Houndstone a Pokemon which, when that attack is taken away, is a PU Pokemon. That attack by itself was strong enough to get Houndstone banned to Ubers as a PU tier Pokemon. And you gave it to an actually good Pokemon with 2 abilities that give a significant boost to its ability to use it. Basculegion would be fine even without the attack, and even with other abilities. It probably wouldn't be OU. It'd probably be near the top of RU, maybe low UU. But, the abilities give it a significant boost. And then you give it fucking last respects, and it's just absolutely absurd. Okay? By the way, just in case you don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, I'll give a bit of an explanation, okay? Last Respect is a move, which is a ghost-type move. Its base damage is 50, but the power goes up for each Pokemon on your team that has fainted. This means that when all 5 of your Pokemon besides the user of Last Respects have fainted, the power of the move is 300. To be clear, the average power of a move in competitive Pokemon is 80 to 90. So this is more than 3 times as powerful as things that you're already as things that you are already, like, expecting to at least 2-shot opponents with. Like, if you're not 2-shotting your opponent's Pokemon with, like, an attack off of an attacker, you're probably not in a good position. You're probably doing something wrong. You know, obviously, situationally, there's times where you just want to chip your opponent down, but for the most part, if you're running an attacker with an attack, you're expecting to at least 2-shot your opponent's Pokemon through good play, and, you know, assuming decent rolls. Last Respects does 3 times the amount of damage that is necessary to do that. Adaptability is an ability which increases the stab damage. That same type attack bonus, so the bonus you get for using an attack that is the same type as the Pokemon using that attack. Adaptability increases that from a 1.5 times boost to a 2 times boost. Swift Swim is an ability which doubles your Pokemon's speed as long as rain, the weather condition rain, is active. I made another one of these about weathers that I'll upload at some point, but rain, like, Basculegion is a water type, so rain being active already helps it because rain boosts water type moves. So rain being active will both boost Swift Swim Basculegion's speed and boost the power of its water type moves. Whereas adaptability will also boost the power of its water type moves, but it will also boost the power of Last Respect. So, like, Swift Swim gives Basculegion 2 times speed, and its speed was already pretty good, which enables it to basically outspeed everything and use either its water type moves or Last Respect to just one-shot whatever it wants, as long as rain stays active, which is legitimately something that's, you know, not guaranteed. Or you can run it adaptability, not have as much speed to work with, but you're still decently fast, and you're probably running it with Choice Scarf, so you're going to outspeed pretty much everything besides other Choice Scarfers. And then that just gives a straight boost to the power of your water moves in case you need the coverage, but mainly it gives a boost to the power of Last Respects just in case, you know, the 300 base power wasn't enough, or in case you're not using it with 300 base power, you know, maybe 2 or 3 of your other Pokemon have fainted. It's at like 150, 200 power, still high, but not like a guaranteed one-shot on everything high. But with adaptability, it kind of is now. But anyway, so those things are why Basculegion is fundamentally a stupid, broken, overpowered mon that I have no idea why they greenlit. However, currently it resides in the Ubers tier of competitive Pokemon, and it is being considered for a ban from the Ubers tier of competitive Pokemon. By the way, if a Pokemon's being considered for a ban from a tier, it is most likely going to get banned. Very rarely does a Pokemon get considered for a ban and then not get banned. It used to be a Pokemon being considered for a ban would almost always be banned. But now, if a Pokemon's being considered for a ban, it almost always gets banned. And this is a thing that I really, 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 really fucking hate. Like, this concept, like this, the way that this works now, it like actually, I'm legit mad about this. It pisses me the fuck off that like this is what competitive Pokemon's come to. Let me again reference Kyogre, okay? Kyogre dominated the fucking Ubers tier, okay? It was like an oppressive force that warped the entire game to deal with just this one specific stupidly broken Pokemon for 5 generations. And they didn't even consider banning it. By the way, 2 of those generations were post-Mega Ray. Mega Ray was banned, and I agree with that one. Okay, I'm not blanket anti-ban. If something's like clearly massively overpowered, then sure, ban it. I don't have a problem with bans fundamentally. My problem is just how trigger happy the competitive scene has been getting with bans recently. Okay, but like to be clear, like Mega Rayquaza, that shit needed to go. Okay, you're telling me it has the highest BST of any Pokemon in the game. It has a 120 base power. It has a flying type close combat, in addition to the 120 base power outrage that it already had access to. Oh, plus V-Create, Extreme Speed, and fucking Dragon Dance. And, just for fun, it nullifies all weaknesses. It nullifies all flying weaknesses, so it only has 2 weaknesses, which are both single weaknesses. And, if that wasn't enough, it's also the only Mega in the game that doesn't require a Mega Stone, which means it can also equip an item. Just in case all of that other stuff wasn't enough. That shit had to go. That shit... that's something I'm totally fine with banning. Okay? But, like... there was nothing you could do about something like that. Or about something like Zacian, where, you know, it's running around with... It comes in once, and now suddenly you're dealing with an 800-plus attack Mon... that outspeeds everything except for, like, Deoxys Speed and Lecky. Both of which it beats anyway. And it also is a Fairy Steel type. Like, those things, I'm okay with banning. Because there's, like... they're not nigh impossible to actually deal with effectively. They're too strong. Okay, but here's my issue with banning Basculegion. Okay, I'll go over my issue with banning Basculegion is there actually are a lot of different ways to deal with it. Okay, I spent a lot of time jerking off how strong and broken and stupid it is. However, the reasons that it is as strong as it is are, 1, it has access to the move Last Respects, which powers up based on the number of Pokemon fainted on your team. Now, when it's fully powered up, it's absolutely stupid. However, in order to be fully powered up, you have to have lost most, if not all, of the other Pokemon on your team. You're not going through and destroying the entire game unless at least 3 of your other Pokemon have fainted, and realistically, it's still like a manageable threat unless 4 to 5 of your other Pokemon have fainted. Okay, so, like, at best, if it's operating the way that, you know, it would need to in order to be an oppressive force, you've got 1 switch out. So, like, Basculegion isn't a problem unless you're already losing. And if you're already losing, then your opponent just needs to get 1 lucky shot. And there's plenty of ways to deal with it in a technical sense, okay? It's fast, but it's not particularly defensive. I think its defense is like base 80. So just hit it with like a Shadow Sneak. I know Marsh Shadow is pretty good in Ubers. Giratina likes to run Shadow Sneak. Or you could hit it with a Sucker Punch. You know, King Gambit. He's seeing some play in Ubers. Oh, and the other thing, besides just using those, generally, Basculegion is going to be running around with a choice item, either choice Scarf or choice Band. Like, it wouldn't be as overpowered as it is if it weren't for those 2 items. Because if it's not running choice Scarf, you can just outspeed it unless it's in rain. But if it's in rain, then just 1, kill the Kyogre and wait for rain to end, or 2, just change the weather using, you know, your own Groudon, your own Rayquaza, or you could even use Tyranitar. Tyranitar is not the most popular Pokemon, but it's around. You could use Tyranitar, you could use Groudon, you could use fucking... What's the name of the... I said it earlier in the thing. Koraidon. You could even use Koraidon, which is currently one of the best Pokemon in the metagame. So, like, a lot of people are running around with Koraidon. And, like, you know, just change the weather. If you're up against the Swift Swim set in rain. And if you're up against the Choice Scarf set, which is the more popular set, then it's locked into a move. That move is probably if that move is not Last Respects, you don't really have to. It's not really that big of a deal. Like, sure, Adaptability Wave Crash is strong, but it's not like OHKOing things that resist it. You know, it's only 112 base attack. And also, like, I'm pretty sure Choice Scarf Adamant's Basculegion with adaptability does not outspeed Regieleki. And generally it's running either Terra Water or Terra Ghost. Like this is definitely a Pokemon you want an offensive Terra on. So, like, Regieleki is legitimately another counter to it, but the main thing I wanted to point out is, like, most people are running this with Choice Scarf or Choice Band. That's the popular set, right? And it makes sense. Choice Band gives additional power that is, you know, very nice to have, especially when you're basically just clicking one move anyway. And Choice Scarf allows it to actually outspeed shit, which otherwise would be a real problem that would allow it to just get outsped in one shot. Like, it needs Choice Scarf unless it's the Swift Swim set in Rain, and if it's the Swift Swim set in Rain, it's sacrificing the power of adaptability and therefore wants to run Choice Scarf, which it's incentivized to do by the fact that it has, like, 2 good moves that it can pretty much just click. Therefore, it's probably running around with Choice Scarf or Choice Band. If it's if you have a Pokemon that's using a Ghost type move, that's locking into a Ghost type move with Choice Scarf or Choice Band, just send it a normal type. That is the counter. That is what you do. You know, or it clicks on a water move and you send in, like, Koraidon. You know, single resist in Sun. Or you send in fucking, is Dracovish in the game? I don't know. Palkia's in the game. Yeah, you send in like Palkia Origin or even Palkia, or even like normal Palkia. You know, you just send in a resist. That move's not even as strong. Like Last Respects is the big issue. Wave Crash is just coverage, basically. And like last Respects, you just got to send in a normal type. That's all you have to do. You know, you're probably, you know, Dark is the only thing that actually resists Ghost. But you just send in a normal type, and then it's a non-issue. You know, or you send in something that outspeeds it, like Regieleki, or you send in something with like super effective priority, like Shadow Sneak Bar Shadow or Sucker Punch Kingambit. And it's inherently predictable because, 1, it doesn't have anything else, but 2, it's probably locked in. And also, it being locked into a move has negative synergy with the fact that Last Respects requires you to have most or all of the rest of your team fainted in order to operate properly, because then you don't have a lot of ability to switch out, which is the thing you would have to do in order to change your move. So, like, you're less able to change your move with that thing. It's extremely predictable. And when something's extremely predictable in as high a power metagame as Ubers, you can just run counters to it. Like, you have access to every Pokemon in the game aside from the 4 that are banned. Okay, but, like, so that's why I don't think this Pokemon specifically should be banned. But also, like, here's the thing. It's being considered for a ban. It is my belief that, because like, here's the thing. I've never seen a ban vote in recent times that, like, made it to the point where it was being put to a vote and didn't get at least 60% of the people voting for it. Because the thing is, like, the people that are voting are, like, they're either players who just see this, lose to it, and are salty, or they just look at the raw data. They look at the usage stats. They see, oh, that number's high. That's like 40% usage. That's extremely impressive. That must be a ban. But, like, here's the thing, okay? Maybe, I don't even think that's valid logic in OU, but, like, for the sake of argument, like, I'm not going to, it's at least a different argument if we're talking, like, OU or some of the lower tiers, but this is fucking Ubers, okay? Ubers is the tier that fucking exists for things that are banned. It should be so incredibly hard for shit to get banned for Ubers, and they banned Calyrex Shadow. They banned fucking Calyrex Shadow from Ubers. The fuck? Yeah, it's strong, but it's fucking Ubers. Like, this is the place that exists for things that are too strong for the entire game. I firmly believe that a Pokemon should not be bannable for Ubers unless it has achieved over a 75% usage rate, at which point it will be put to a vote. It will not be banned. It will be put to a vote to be banned. And because I think at that point, it would be almost impossible for it to not get it like a majority of people saying it should be banned just based on that raw figure. I genuinely believe you should not be able to ban a Pokemon from Ubers unless at least 85% of the people in the vote agree that it should be banned. I think if even 16% of people argue there's a place for it in the metagame, people just need to figure out how to deal with it, I think that's enough that we shouldn't do it. Because here's my take on it, okay? Ironically, I think that most people that play competitive Pokemon are not very creative. Like, because at a high level, like playing this game at a high level, it's just math. You're just doing math, basically. You're running calcs. You're looking at like numbers. You're memorizing data, and like, it's even to the point. This is a little side tangent, but like it's to the point where like you're considered to be putting yourself at a disadvantage if you don't use Chrome add-ons that do calculations for you. I don't use Chrome add-ons that do calculations for me. I did once in randoms, and I immediately won like 30 games in a row and shot up like 500 elo. And then I deleted the add-on because by God did that ruin the entire experience for me. I wasn't getting better at the game. I was basically cheating, but it's not considered cheating because technically all that information's out there. You just, would normally have to memorize it, and I was not doing that. But generally people are considered to be putting themselves at a disadvantage if they don't use those add-ons. That was a side tangent. But it just goes to show my point of like, people who play competitive Pokemon generally are not all that creative. I do think it's a bit of a bell curve type thing. I think the people at the bottom who are not very good at the game are very creative, and I think the really good like top players who've learned the game to an extreme degree, I think they're also pretty creative because they're just kind of having fun with it. They don't have to. If they want to win, they understand that they need to counterpick the current meta, which requires a level of creativity. And if they're just playing for fun, then why would they just pick the normal stuff? But I think the bulk of the bell curve, the midwits, I think those people are not very creative when it comes to, team building or strategy. I think they're mostly just running stuff that's meta and running stuff that's meta in like, and making mid-tier plays and hoping they win with it. They're not trying to do anything fancy. And because like they just want to win and grind elo. They don't necessarily have the understanding that the high tier players do to accurately assess the metagame. But the problem with this, I think, is that it because there's not a lot of creativity going into the experience for the majority of players, this creates an issue where like things that absolutely should not be an oppressive force in the metagame become so. Because there is only a small handful of there's selection bias for a small handful of Pokemon that are generally pretty good in most situations and easy to use. And then when something comes along that beats almost all of those, it's considered oppressive. And that's, I think, what's happening. And that's, I think, what happens with the majority of bans that occur. Sometimes they are legitimate. Like the OU ban of Chien-Pao. By the way, that's a funny story. In the beginning of Generation 9, Chien-Pao was legal. To be clear, Chien-Pao should never have been legal. I don't know why that shit was allowed. In Generation 8, they were calling for a Weevil ban. Chien-Pao is an objectively better Weevil. But anyway, in the beginning of Gen 8, Chien-Pao was legal. And I went into the OU lobby, and I said, so, when's Chien-Pao getting banned? And like 3 people told me Chien-Pao's not ban-worthy. And Chien-Pao's banned now, and also I used Chien-Pao, and it was extremely good, and I made it to like top 5. I made it to top 500. I think I was like 250-ish, and like I kind of wanted to grind more, but I didn't like. I other shit came up. I probably could have. I'm not saying that team could have taken me to like number 1, but I probably could have gotten better than I did. But I was still like, like 250-ish. That's not bad. And I attribute not all, but like a lot of that success to Qian Pao. But anyway, like I'm not like that probably needed to be banned because that was just overpowered. But the counterpoint would be something like something like Basculegion, where there's plenty of counterplay options. Like there legitimately are a lot of good counterplay options. But no one fucking uses them because they don't beat the majority of other things. At least not when they're not being used in a creative and interesting way that synergizes with, a team built around having that Pokemon on it. They're situational. They're fun, but they're a bit gimmicky, and people just want to win. And when something gets in the way of them doing that by using, the just solid high tier metagame picks, they get mad. They call for a ban because they want to protect their ability to win without being creative and, without having to restructure the way that they play the game around a new paradigm. And I think that's a problem. And I think a lot of this is actually due to the increased popularity of competitive Pokemon. Like I think because this never fucking happened. Like this shit never used to happen back when it was a little more insular in like Generation 5, Generation 6. Like, people played Pokemon, but competitive was kind of seen not as like a mainstream thing. Like maybe some people were aware that it existed, but I don't want to say it was stigmatized. But it was just more there was a higher barrier for entry. It required you to do a lot more homework. There weren't a lot of tools around to help people with it. But now, like, it's a pretty common thing to the point where, almost every high schooler has hopped on Pokemon Showdown randoms at some point. And I think, but because of that, like, a lot more people are just casual players, and casual players don't want to have to do metagame analysis to deal with, like, a couple of overpowered threats. Even though, like, metagame analysis to deal with some overpowered threats is exactly how a metagame is supposed to develop. Like that is a good and healthy metagame. Like things that surround a few strong things that aren't like required, aren't game breaking. You can run a team that doesn't have them. You just need to bring at least 1 or 2 counters to them. Like that's fine. That's good. That's desirable. But people don't like that. Because it requires a level of knowledge and creativity that a lot of people just don't have because, they just want to hop on Pokemon Showdown for like an hour or 2 after work or something, which I get, but ultimately I just think it's more fun if that's not the case. Anyway, these are my thoughts on Basculegion.